How do you save a star? Andy Weir's 2021 sci-fi novel Project Hail Mary gives us the answer, and today we're doing a deep dive, full plot explanation of the book, starting with a man with no memory of who he is. But as we piece together Ryland Grace's shattered mind, we realize the math of this mission doesn't add up. The science says saving the world is possible, but the truth is, Ryland Grace was never supposed to be the hero of the mission. There's a dark, unsettling secret buried in his forgotten memories that changes everything about the hero we think we're following. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the most important discovery in human history wasn't found through a telescope, but in a pressurized tunnel between two lonely souls. The story begins in a sterile white room. Our protagonist wakes up with zero memory. He is being tended to by robotic arms. He's weak, his muscles have atrophied, and he quickly realizes he isn't alone. There are two other people in the room with him, but they've been dead for a long time. The sight of them makes him sad, and he's not sure why. Perhaps he knew them before he lost his memory. He spends the first few days just trying to survive. He's a scientist at heart, so he uses the scientific method to figure out his environment. He measures gravity by dropping a pen, and he realizes the gravity is stronger than Earth's. Eventually, he learns that he's on a spaceship, and then his name comes back to him. Ryland Grace. And with his name, the memories begin to flood back in waves. In his past life, Ryland Grace wasn't an astronaut. He was a junior high school science teacher and a former molecular biologist who left academia after writing a controversial paper claiming that life didn't necessarily need water to survive. He was a pariah until the world started to end. A scientist named Petrova discovered a line of red infrared light stretching from the sun to Venus. The sun was losing its energy. It was dimming. Grace was recruited by Ava Stratt, who had been given absolute authority by the UN to solve this problem. Grace then discovered the cause. A single-celled organism he names Astrophage. It's a spacefaring parasite consuming the sun's energy to travel to Venus to breed. Ryland Grace was chosen for the project because he was one of the only leading scientists who believed life didn't require water to survive, and for a microorganism to live on the sun, it would require a structure that also doesn't need water to live. To understand why this whole situation is such a threat though, you have to understand Astrophage. It's a literal star eater. It's a one-cell organism that is essentially a biological supercapacitor. It absorbs light and stores it as mass energy, which allows it to move at relativistic speeds. It's the ultimate evolutionary survivor, but it has one flaw. It needs CO2 to breed. That's why it's migrating to Venus, and that's why it's creating a Petrova line that is literally draining the life out of our sun. It's not malicious, it's just hungry. Back in the present, Ryland explores the Hail Mary. He discovers he is in the Tau Ceti system. Why? Because Tau Ceti is the only nearby star that isn't dimming despite being infected with Astrophage. Something in this system is keeping the parasite in check. As he works to stabilize the ship, he triggers a memory of why the mission was so desperate. Grace remembers the development of the Hail Mary. The ship is powered by the very thing killing the sun, Astrophage. It's the most efficient fuel in existence, but there's a catch. The mission is a one-way trip. There isn't enough fuel or food to get the crew back to Earth. The plan is to find the predator of Astrophage, send the data back to Earth via 4 small beetle probes, and then die in space. He also remembers the original crew, Commander Yao, Ilyukna, and Dubois, each highly specialized in an area of study the mission would require. Back in the present, Ryland gets an alert as a structure approaches, an alien spaceship. This is one of the most incredible first contact scenarios in science fiction history. Grace meets the inhabitant, a creature he names Rocky. Rocky is an Iridian, hailing from the planet Irid. He looks like a 5-limbed spider with a shell made of minerals. He sees with sonar, breathes hot ammonia, and speaks in musical notes. Grace and Rocky spend weeks building a pressurized tunnel between their ships. They develop a shared language using a computer program Grace writes. They realize they are here for the same reason. Irid's sun is also dying. 2 lonely survivors from 2 different worlds, meeting in the vacuum of space to save their respective homes. Quick break. The Oscars are coming up on the 15th, and now you can finally trade on them in all 50 states in the US. Kalshi is the largest prediction market. You can trade on anything from movies, music, politics, to sports, and it's available in all 50 states. So let's look at what the Kalshi markets have to say about the Oscars. Let's take an example. Right now, Timothée Chalamet is up for Best Actor and is trading near 37 cents, meaning if I trade $100, I get over $271. That's pretty good. So go check out Kalshi and use code ROCKETRILEY to get $10 when you trade $10. Thanks to Kalshi for sponsoring the video. Now back to Project Hail Mary. Grace and Rocky travel to a planet in the Tau Ceti system they call Adrian. This is where they find the culprit, Taumoeba. It's a microorganism that eats Astrophage. However, they run into a problem. Taumoeba cannot survive in nitrogen-rich environments, which makes it useless for saving Earth or Erid. Because Earth and Erid's targets have nitrogen-heavy environments, the two have to work together to breed a version of Taumoeba that can survive via evolutionary pressure. And they succeed. They have the cure. They split the Taumoeba samples and Rocky fuels up Grace's ship with enough astrophage to potentially reach Earth. They say a heartbreaking goodbye. Rocky begins the long journey back to Erid and Grace prepares his beetle probes. Now, he had done it. Earth's survival was in the hands of 4 small probes hurtling towards the Sol system. Ryland sets his course for Earth, prepares for a long coma, and begins to celebrate. But then, he notices something impossible. His fuel levels are dropping. He realizes that the Taumoeba had developed a terrifying new trait. It could slip through the molecular gaps of xenonite, the Iridian supermetal. It's not eating the metal, it's leaking through it like a sieve to get to the astrophage fuel on the other side. A cold realization hits him. If it's happening on his ship, it's happening on Rocky's. And Rocky doesn't have any spare nitrogen to kill the Taumoeba. Rocky is currently flying back to a planet that has no backup plan on a ship that is slowly losing its ability to move. Rocky is going to be stranded in the dark and Erid will die. Grace has just enough fuel to reach Earth or just enough fuel to find Rocky. He can't do both. So what should he do? In this moment of crisis, Grace's final memory returns. He remembers the days leading up to the launch of the Hail Mary, and just days before the launch, a catastrophic accident was caused by a massive million-fold calculation error in handling Astrophage. The mission's lead scientist, Dubois, and the backup scientist, Shapiro, were testing a generator and accidentally used a milligram of Astrophage instead of a nanogram, resulting in the vaporization of the research center. Now, the only person who made sense for the mission was Grace, simply the next best candidate for the crew. Strat called upon him to sacrifice his life for the Hail Mary, even though he had limited to no experience with astronaut activities. He remembers begging Strat not to send him. He remembers that in the end, he refused to volunteer. Ryland Grace didn't choose to save the world. He was a coward who had to be drugged and forced into the ship because he was too afraid to die. It was this coma-inducing drug that caused his amnesia as well. Back in the present, without a second thought, Ryland Grace turns the ship around. He chooses Rocky. He chooses his friend over his own life back on Earth. He catches up to Rocky's ship, saves him from certain death, and gives him the corrected Taumoeba in glass containers. But now, Grace is truly stranded. He has no food left, and he's prepared to die, having finally done something truly selfless. But Rocky won't let him. He invites Grace back to Erid, promising to build him a special Earth bubble habitat. The book ends years later. Ryland Grace is an old man on Erid, eating synthesized food and teaching Iridian children science, just like he did back on Earth. One day, Rocky visits him with news. Sol has returned to full brightness. The beetle probes made it. Earth is saved. Grace looks up at the Iridian sky and realizes he didn't just save a star. He saved 2. Project Hail Mary is my all-time favorite book, hands down. It's a story that reinforces the idea that science isn't just about formulas, it's about curiosity and the bridges we build with others. The reason I'm so hyped right now is that the film adaptation is finally almost here. Directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller and starring Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace, it comes out on March 20th. Everything I've seen suggests they've nailed the tone. If you haven't read the book yet, you have just enough time to finish it before the premiere. I know I left out a lot of details, but at least I got across the most important parts of the plot. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments, if you were in Ryland's shoes, would you have turned the ship around? Also, don't forget to check out Call Sheet and use code ROCKETRILEY to get $10 when you trade $10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.